Something that I really like to include in my campaigns as a really useful plot device, really quite fun plot device as well, is the anti-party. In this video, I'll be going over the who, the why, and the how. Put simply, they're just a negative reflection of your players, an antagonist to their protagonist, all while sharing similarities but not being the same, just a lot of overlap. Whether they're actively working against the party for their own goals and ideals, or they just happen to be mercenaries hired by antagonists, that's up to you. I briefly touched on this before, but nonetheless, the reason that I like to include them is they're a really fun plot device. After you've introduced them and established them as characters in your campaign world and made sure that the party don't like them, it serves as a really useful way to galvanise your players into action. They will likely be more invested in different plot lines and adventures if they know the anti-party are going to be there because they want to stop them, they don't like them. This isn't the definitive way of how to implement them, this is just from my own experience, how I've liked to do it, but I encourage you to have your own spin on it. I first like to introduce them through gossip and maybe passing remarks. Maybe they overheard a conversation as they're walking through town. They overheard a conversation of people talking about this really cool, interesting group of adventurers who came through and saved them from this peril. Maybe there's a town crier walking through, praising these adventurers. Maybe there's a group of excitable children talking about these really cool people who came through, and maybe they even saw some of like the combat they got involved with, and they saw like them casting really cool spells and doing all these cool abilities. However you do it, the point of this is just to sort of plant the seed of introducing these characters as being part of your campaign and starting to hint at maybe them being an opposition to your players. I also like to use this as a good way of sort of hinting at the anti-party's abilities, just sort of dropping in those little seeds here and there, little nuggets for your players to sort of pick up on, and yeah, as you go forward. First encounter with them in the campaign, I would keep it quite light, nothing too heavy, just sort of a competition of some sort. Maybe your players walk into a tavern and the anti-party are there, and then the patrons issue a challenge to the two groups to see who's best. Maybe anti-party outright challenges them, or maybe your party challenges them because they want to prove that they're better than these other people. However it's done, competition could be just something simple like a horse race, or wrestling, arm wrestling, game of chance, drinks competition. Whatever the competition is, have it so the anti-party cheats, sabotages your players. From my own experience, after doing this, your players are 100% against these people. They are antagonists. Your players do not like them now. Then later on down the line, have it so that your party and the anti-party have a very similar goal, similar quest. Maybe your players want to retrieve an item and so do they, and so now there's a sort of race between the two of them. Or maybe your party want to rescue something, the anti-party want to destroy it, or vice versa. However you do it, there'll likely be a sort of combat encounter. In these combat encounters, I like to emphasise the teamwork and synergies in the anti-party, because afterwards your players can sort of reflect on that and be like, oh yeah, that was really cool how they used that spell and then that ability, and like, why don't we do that? So that's a cool way of sort of encouraging your players to be a bit more sort of a team player. You can also give the anti-party magic items that your players would really want to have, and you can use it as sort of a way of teasing them, of like, look at all these cool things you could have, sort of thing. Then for the potentially final confrontation, it could be that the anti-party stole the item that your players want and your players are hunting them down, or maybe they ran off with an NPC that your players needed to rescue or interrogate, question, get information from. Maybe they're just simply wanting revenge, or the anti-party seek out your players because your players are making them look bad and ruining their reputation. However you do it, however you phrase it, this final confrontation your players will hopefully win. You can then, if if the anti-party were just mercenaries hired by the antagonist, you can have it so that your players could potentially win them over to their side in whatever conflict or issues going on. It could be that the anti-party will exchange information for their safety, and that's a really nice organic way of divulging loads of information to your players about your setting and what's going on, but doing it in an, like I said, an organic way, a bit more interest than just like a monologue of here's some information. Regarding stat blocks of these guys, this is sort of something that I tend to shy away from, but because I want to give you guys some room for your own creative spin, personally I would avoid making them player characters, because player versus player is not typically balanced. Instead, I would give them monster stat blocks with character abilities. I just found that works better. Player versus player, it's just way too brutal, way too fast, whereas that monster versus player stat blocks, it works so much better. However you do it, hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.